Okay folks, buckle up. Tonight on the Mysteria Archive, we're heading to the frozen edges of our planet, where the maps blur, compasses spin, and the ice might just be hiding something alive. Get ready for a wild ride. The frozen ends of the Earth. Places so remote, even sunlight seems hesitant to stay. To the north, an ocean capped in drifting ice. To the south, a continent buried beneath 2 miles of frozen time. Both ringed by restricted airspace, both blurred out on satellite maps, and both, for over a century, surrounded by rumours of visitors. It began with explorers who saw lights beneath the ice, not stars, not auroras, lights that moved with purpose. Then came military missions, coded, classified, and the sudden silence that followed. Even now, pilots whisper about fast movers over the poles. Scientists talk quietly about magnetic voids and thermal anomalies that defy explanation. What if those frozen frontiers aren't just the ends of the Earth, but entrances? Entrances to something beneath, something vast, ancient, and alive. Because while we look to the stars for signs of extraterrestrial life, maybe the truth has been sleeping under our own planet all along. Alright, look, I know what you're thinking. Here we go again, another hollow earth theory. But stick with me, because this one's not about mole men or lost cities made of quartz. It's about patterns, restricted zones, missing data, and old military reports that all circle back to the same coordinates, the poles. Now, is it aliens? Secret tech? A geological glitch? Who knows? But what's fascinating is how many different governments have tiptoed around those regions like they're hiding something big. And let's be honest, if I had to stash my intergalactic Airbnb somewhere on Earth, I'd pick the spot nobody can casually visit without freezing their face off. So, let's start with the first clue. The lights that shouldn't exist. It always starts the same way. Someone sees lights where no lights should be. In the early 20th century, Arctic explorers reported strange glows beneath the ice. Orbs that pulse softly in patterns, sometimes rising, sometimes sinking out of sight. Their journals described the ice itself lit from within, as though something was moving under the frozen surface. Most dismissed it as trapped gas or tricks of light, but not all. By World War II, things got stranger. Allied and Axis pilots flying over the Arctic began encountering metallic disks, reflecting light from beneath the cloud layer, objects that radar occasionally caught and then lost. In 1952, a US Navy weatherplane recorded unidentified aerial phenomena over the polar circle. The file was labeled anomalous optics. The footage? Missing. Across the world, Soviet pilots reported the same. Fast, silent craft that moved like living things then vanished over the ice. When radar operators tried to lock on, the returns blurred, as if something were bending their signals. Officially, the explanation was always aurora interference, but eyewitnesses swore it wasn't in the sky, it was under it. Even today, satellite data occasionally shows unexplained bursts of light beneath the polar sheets, flashes that appear for seconds then disappear. Scientists chalk it up to ice fractures. Others believe those glows are signs of energy, artificial energy, coming from deep below. Maybe it's geothermal activity. Maybe it's just the planet breathing. Or maybe it's something down there signaling back. So, glowing lights under the ice. Sounds like the setup to every low-budget sci-fi movie ever made, right? But here's the weird part. These reports aren't just from one place or one decade. We're talking explorers, pilots, radar operators, even modern satellite data, all pointing to something luminous beneath the poles. Now, sure, maybe it's methane flares or cracks in the ice doing weird things with light. That's the rational take. But when multiple Cold War militaries start quietly filing those incidents away under restricted, you have to wonder, did someone see more than a reflection? Either way, this is where the story starts to heat up, literally, because next we're heading south to the mission that changed everything. Operation Highjump and the Lost Expeditions. In 1947, an American fleet sailed south. 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and more than 4,000 personnel. Officially, it was called Operation Highjump, a naval expedition to Antarctica for research and training. Unofficially, it was something else entirely. Led by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, the mission was meant to last 8 months. Instead, it ended after just 8 weeks. Reports from crew members spoke of strange lights, sudden aircraft losses, and communication blackouts that the Navy never fully explained. When Byrd returned home, he made a statement to the press that's still debated to this day. He warned that the United States must prepare for flying objects capable of traveling from pole to pole at incredible speeds. And within days, those words disappeared from newspapers, replaced by dry military summaries. And Byrd wasn't the only one who saw something strange. Soviet records from the same decade mentioned polar intrusions, unidentified craft entering and exiting through the planet's magnetic zones. Declassified documents confirmed that both nations were tracking something over the poles during the Cold War. The lore that followed turned Highjump into legend. Claims of a hidden civilization, encounters with disc-shaped craft, even the discovery of a vast underground structure buried beneath the ice. None of it verified, but none of it completely debunked either. Whatever Byrd found, or thought he found, it scared the Pentagon enough to classify large portions of his reports for decades. And in the years that followed, both the US and the Soviet Union quietly built permanent bases at the poles, not for tourism, but for surveillance. Maybe the mission wasn't about exploring Antarctica. Maybe it was about containing something already there. Okay, so Operation Highjump, half expedition, half mystery movie. The official story says it was all about testing equipment and training troops in cold weather. But bringing an entire naval fleet for a research mission sounds a bit like showing up to a camping trip with a tank battalion. Now, whether Byrd actually encountered anything out of this world, we'll probably never know. His logs are patchy, his interviews censored, and the Navy's been dodging questions about it ever since. But it is interesting, right? Right after Highjump, both the US and the Soviets doubled down on polar surveillance. It's almost like they both saw something worth keeping tabs on. So, maybe it wasn't just ice down there. Maybe it was a doorway. And that brings us to our next question. Where does that doorway lead? The polar vortex, gateways between worlds. Here's where the story slips from history into something stranger. Across centuries, myths have pointed north and south as places of power, gateways between worlds. Ancient Greek texts spoke of Hyperborea, a radiant land beyond the north wind, home to godlike beings untouched by time. In the south, explorers chasing magnetic anomalies whispered of a black sun, an inner light beneath the ice. Modern science, oddly enough, hasn't entirely killed those ideas. The poles really are magnetic portals of a kind, invisible funnels where charged particles spiral through Earth's magnetic field. During magnetic storms, those channels expand, creating fleeting voids where instruments behave like reality itself is glitching. To most physicists, it's just the magnetosphere doing its thing. But to theorists, those polar vortices are far more. They are corridors. Some believe they could act like natural wormholes where the fabric of space-time bends inward, connecting distant points or other dimensions entirely. NASA's Themis probes even detected flux transfer events, magnetic tubes linking Earth directly to the Sun. If such connections exist on a cosmic scale, could similar ones lie beneath our planet's magnetic poles? For UFO researchers, this might explain the long-standing mystery: how craft can appear and vanish near the poles without radar trace, as if slipping through invisible doors. It's a wild thought, but the data is there. Transient magnetic tunnels, thermal voids, gravitational blips. Not proof for portals, but the ghost of the idea that maybe, just maybe, the universe left a few shortcuts open, and the poles are where they begin. All right, let's take a breath. We've gone from military missions to literal gateways between worlds in about 3 minutes. But that's kind of the fun of this stuff, right? The line between science and speculation gets thin up here. Now, flux transfer events? Well, those are real. NASA confirmed them. Wormholes? Still theory. But when you've got areas where magnetic fields go haywire, compasses spin, and electronics glitch, it's easy to see why people start thinking portal. Now, personally, I'm not saying the Arctic is a stargate, but if GPS stops working and a glowing disc hovers overhead, I'm definitely running in the opposite direction. Anyway, If there is something hiding behind those anomalies, we might not need to imagine it, because next we go beneath the ice itself. Secrets beneath the ice. If there's one thing Antarctica has mastered, it's hiding secrets. For decades, scientists have drilled, scanned, and probed its frozen crust, and the deeper they go, the stranger it gets. In the 1990s, satellites detected vast heat signatures beneath the ice. Not just random hotspots, patterns. Perfectly circular areas hundreds of meters wide, buried under miles of snow. NASA attributed them to geothermal activity, maybe volcanic. But the symmetry, that was harder to explain. Then came sonar readings from subglacial lakes, especially Lake Vostok, sealed off from the surface for over 15 million years. Russian teams reported anomalous magnetic signatures beneath the water, as if something metallic lay below. When the first ice core samples were taken, their instruments short-circuited. A blackout followed, and the Russian base was suddenly closed for maintenance. In the Arctic, similar readings emerged beneath Greenland's ice sheet, enormous voids that appeared and vanished between scans. Geologists said they were caused by melting and refreezing. UFO researchers said they resembled artificial structures, domes, maybe even buried craft. Adding to the mystery are the unverified testimonies of Cold War engineers, Americans and Soviets alike, who claimed to have worked near metallic formations deep under polar ice. One described a smooth, curved hall stretching for miles. Another said the ice melted differently near the object, as if reacting to energy. Most scientists dismiss these stories as exaggerated, but they all point toward one unsettling idea. There's something down there, something generating heat, distorting instruments, and refusing to be uncovered. And the deeper we dig, the louder the ice seems to whisper back. Okay, so Lake Vostok, easily one of my favorite nothing to see here places on Earth. You've got a massive freshwater lake sealed away for millions of years, heat signatures that look suspiciously organized, and a research base that mysteriously shuts down right after equipment interference. Totally normal. Now, could this just be natural geology doing its thing? Absolutely. Antarctica sits on active volcanic zones, but when you see symmetrical heat signatures and magnetic distortions popping up in patterns, that's when eyebrows start rising. And let's be honest, if there were alien craft under the ice, scientists wouldn't exactly throw a press conference. They'd call it thermal flux and go back to drilling. But this story doesn't freeze there, because the Cold War made things a lot hotter. The Cold War encounters no one admitted to. By the 1960s, the Arctic and the Antarctic had become silent battlegrounds, not for territory, but for secrecy. Declassified communications show both the US and Soviet militaries tracking unidentified fast movers over polar regions, objects accelerating from stationary to supersonic speeds in seconds, without sound or heat trail. In 1962, US intelligence intercepted reports of a Soviet operation near the South Pole. The codename? Project Orel, Eagle. According to documents, Soviet aircraft were sent to investigate a submerged luminous phenomenon detected near the coast of Queen Maud Land. A contact was lost with one of the planes. When recovery crews arrived, they reported severe radiation levels and an object of unknown alloy composition. Those reports were buried until the 1990s, when fragments allegedly matching the description surfaced in a Moscow archive. Meanwhile, NORAD files from the same period mention an Arctic retrieval operation, a craft trapped on radar descending over the polar circle, then vanishing beneath the ice. Hours later, a convoy of US military transports left Greenland under high security. Their destination? Classified. Publicly, both nations denied any encounters. Privately, they fortified their polar presence. Within 2 years, the US established permanent Antarctic outposts under Operation Deep Freeze, while the Soviets built mirrored bases nearby, supposedly for research. But if these were just weather stations, why the secrecy? Why the radiation suits, the scrambled communications, the encrypted transmissions that even today remain redacted? It seems both sides stumbled upon something they couldn't explain, and couldn't risk the other side discovering first. And when two superpowers both pretend nothing happened, that's when you know something definitely did. Cold War gave us nukes, spies, and apparently UFOs in snow boots. It's wild how both the US and the Soviets had the same stories. Nothing to see here, followed by frantic base building at opposite ends of the planet. Now sure, secrecy was the Cold War's default setting, but when you've got radiation reports, missing aircraft, and mysterious alloys no one can identify, it stops sounding like routine research. Could they have found experimental tech? Possibly. Could it have been natural? Maybe. But you don't build matching bases just to watch penguins. And if these two global rivals agree to stay quiet about something, that might be the loudest silence in history. Next, we'll take a look at why the evidence keeps disappearing, even from space. The blurred maps and silent satellites. Pull up a globe, zoom in on the top or bottom, and something strange happens. The image warps, the detail fades, the poles become smudges. Officially, it's just data stitching, the way satellites piece together images of a spinning planet. But look closer and you'll find patterns. Concentric distortions, rectangular patches of blurred pixels, and areas marked as data voids. Antarctica has dozens. The Arctic has more. NASA explains it as technical limitations, low-angle sunlight, poor calibration. Fair enough, but if that's true, why do the same glitches appear in identical spots year after year? Then there's the story of Lake Vostok, buried beneath more than 2 miles of Antarctic ice. For years, satellite photos of this area showed a massive black circle, like a digital sensor bar. When questioned, agencies claimed it was a shadow from the satellite, but shadows don't stay the same shape for decades. Now, Google Earth has its own mysteries, grid lines that don't align, areas near the magnetic North Pole that simply refuse to render. Even independent satellite operators report sudden telemetry dropouts when orbiting those regions, as if something's jamming the feed. Researchers who've tried to stitch together the missing pieces claim the gaps align almost perfectly with known magnetic anomalies, the same zones where radar interference and unexplained heat signatures have been recorded. Coincidence? Maybe. But if there's one place you'd hide an entrance, it would be in the one part of the world no one can clearly see. Because when it comes to the poles, it's not what's there that's strange, it's what's missing. Yeah, every time I open Google Earth and the North Pole turns into a glitchy grey blob, I can't help thinking that's some very consistent technical difficulty. I mean, I've seen 20-year-old webcams stream more cleanly. Now, I'm not saying there's an alien base hidden under the blur, but it's weird how every reason for the distortion is perfectly reasonable until you realise it's been the same reason for decades. And maybe it's just data compression. Maybe it's something officials don't want the public zooming in on. And I'm not talking about penguins. Either way, if there's a cover-up, it's the cleanest one on Earth, literally frozen into the map. But if the map hides something, someone might be keeping it that way. The Watchers Beneath the Ice. The story doesn't end with old expeditions or satellite images. It continues, quietly under the ice. In recent years, researchers stationed at polar outposts have reported strange phenomena. Lights moving beneath the frozen sea, glowing like submerged orbs before fading into the deep. Submariners in both hemispheres have tracked sonar returns of metallic objects moving at impossible speeds, zigzagging, stopping, then vanishing mid-scan. In 2003, a British Antarctic research vessel recorded what the crew described as a luminous arc under the ice shelf. It appeared to shadow the ship for nearly an hour before dropping off radar entirely. The official report? Instrumental error. And NORAD logs show similar accounts, fast-moving submersibles rising from beneath the Arctic, then breaking radar contact near magnetic anomalies. No heat, no sound, just disappearance. To some scientists, these are geological echoes, natural reflections bouncing through layers of ice and salt water. But others whisper a different possibility, that these are observation craft, silent, patient, watching. There's even a name for them in modern lore, the Watchers. Not visitors from the sky, but custodians beneath, a presence older than civilization, content to let humanity live on the crust while they remain below. Ancient myths speak of gods dwelling under mountains of ice, the shining ones of Hyperborea, the sleeping titans of the south. Today, sonar and magnetometers are replacing myth, and they're picking up the same whispers. If there's something alive beneath the poles, it doesn't want to be found. But maybe it's been watching us the whole time, waiting for us to look back. Okay, the Watchers. I'll be honest, that name alone is nightmare fuel. Imagine realizing your entire species has been the weird experiment in someone's freezer. Now, most of these accounts are explainable. Sonar ghosts, magnetic interference, maybe even ice shifting under pressure. But when military-grade instruments start picking up coordinated movement under solid ice, that's when eyebrows start doing the wave. And the idea of observation craft isn't that far-fetched. After all, even humans send drones into oceans we've barely explored. So, who knows? Maybe under all that ice, something's watching us the way we watch the stars. And if that's true, what happens when the Watchers decide to introduce themselves? The frozen doorway. Maybe the poles aren't the end of Earth at all. Maybe they're the beginning. For centuries, we've looked outward for signs of other life. To the stars, the galaxies, the infinite dark. But what if the greatest mystery isn't out there? It's buried right beneath our feet, sealed under layers of ice older than human history itself. From ancient myths of Hyperborea to Admiral Byrd's secretive flights, from magnetic voids to modern sonar anomalies. The clues seem to whisper the same thing. The ends of our world are hiding a truth we're not ready to face. And maybe the lights beneath the ice aren't visitors. Maybe they're residents. Maybe they've been here all along, guiding, watching, waiting. And the blurred maps, the censored images, the silence. Maybe that's not ignorance. Maybe it's protection. Because if what's beneath the ice isn't hostile, it might be sacred. Something ancient, something alive in a way we can't yet understand. The Arctic, the Antarctic, two frozen mirrors reflecting the same secret from opposite ends of the planet. So, the next time you see the aurora shimmering across the polar night, ask yourself, is it just light dancing through magnetic storms, or is it something stirring beneath, finally waking up? The truth may be buried in ice, but the ice doesn't last forever. You know, I love the idea that maybe we're not alone under the stars, but under the ice. It's poetic, right? Humanity searching the cosmos for aliens while ignoring two giant keep-out signs at home. Now, I'm not saying there's a city of glowing saucers under Antarctica, but the patterns, the secrecy, the anomalies, they're enough to make you wonder. And maybe that's the point. Curiosity keeps the story alive. So, until someone finally melts the truth out of the poles, stay curious and keep watching the ice. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I just couldn't resist one more episode before the end of the year. Okay, I'll be back on Friday, January the 9th. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Enjoy your holidays. And as always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments below of videos you would like to see next time. Okay, my friends, be safe. And until January the 9th, stay curious.